What's up, everybody? Welcome to this NFL Week 12 edition of the Cherry Pickers. I'm your host, Gary Altizer. We are back here for another episode. We're coming off a great week, our best week of the year. The picks on here, the system picks on the Cherry Picker show here on YSN went 7-2, and my teaser cashed as well. So it was an 8-win, 2-loss week. Remember, these picks are all against the spread. This isn't money line. This isn't just straight up winners. This is against the spread. So I hope you guys tailed. I hope you guys were able to make some money. It was a great week last week. And like I said earlier in the year, the longer the season goes on, the better the numbers get and the better the numbers get for us and our picks. And that seems to be the case because the last 2 weeks, we are 14-3 against the spread. So some really awesome picks here the last few weeks. Why don't we do a quick recap on last week? We had Seattle +6 at San Francisco. That cashed. Seattle actually won outright. We had the Bears +6 at home versus Green Bay. That cashed as well. And I'll tell you, the Bears losing at the end of the game on a blocked field goal. 2 weeks in a row, the NFL, that happened. That never happens. Minnesota -6 versus Tennessee cashed. We lost. One of the games we lost was one of the two was New England getting 4.5 versus the Rams. I believe they lost by 5 or 6. But really, I think they outplayed the Rams. The Rams got a cheap touchdown where they started their drive inside New England's 20-yard line. If not for that, New England cashes and we go 9-1. We took Indy +4.5 versus the Jets. We talked about the Jets and how they were overrated and are still being listed as favorites on these books for whatever reason that is. But Indy ended up coming through, winning outright. Richardson come back in his first start, played great. Pittsburgh getting 3 against Baltimore cashed as well. Pittsburgh won overall. The one game I said I didn't like, the one pick I didn't like was Atlanta getting 2 at Denver. They got smoked. Atlanta's all smoke and mirrors. They're not as good a team as their record shows, and Denver just took it to them. Buffalo -2 versus Kansas City. That cashed as well. And the Chargers -1 versus Cincinnati. We won that one. And then my teaser pick won again was the Colts +10.5 and Steelers +9. So we go 8-2 on the week. It was a great week. I hope you guys are able to use some of these picks to make some money for yourself and have some fun on a Sunday. All right, we've got a bunch more picks here for this week in week 12. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more picks, and then I have a teaser to throw in as well. So why don't we start with a recap of that Browns-Steelers game? Anybody who watched it, it was a good game. It was a classic AFC North game. I really thought the Browns were going to play well in this game. They're kind of just playing for pride now, but Pittsburgh going into Cleveland on a Thursday. Cleveland plays good on Thursdays. I don't know why, but heading there on a Thursday as the road favorite against a division foe that is well coached, that's a tough spot to be in. And watching the game, it's not like Pittsburgh did anything really horrible to lose that game. They just, they got outplayed. That's all it was. Both teams, I think, scored on the same amount of drives. It's just that one of the Cleveland drives was a touchdown, and one of the Pittsburgh drives was a field goal. Pittsburgh also missed a field goal in there. There's not much to say. I think Cleveland played great, and I don't think Pittsburgh played all that bad. They just got outplayed. It was a great game in the snow. I love watching a snow game in the NFL. It seemed like the atmosphere there was pretty cool. But no Cleveland, no Pittsburgh this Sunday. So I know a lot of you guys out there, those are your favorite teams. You can maybe focus on some of these other games that we got here, maybe make some money, pay attention to this. So why don't we get right into it? The first game is the Detroit Lions at the Indianapolis Colts. The Lions are 7.5-point favorites. I don't like this pick. The system says, the numbers say, take Detroit at -7.5. It's got Detroit as 12 points better than Indy overall. So it covers the 7.5 points. I don't like this pick because Indy playing at home is tough. Indy's running game is really tough. Detroit is due for a stinker. They haven't played horrible in a long time. They played one or two bad games or below average games, but they haven't played horrible in a while. Jared Goff was on a crazy run. If anybody knows that guy and watched his career, he does this. He'll go on these crazy runs passing the ball where he'll look like a top 5 NFL quarterback. But then the opposite also happens where he'll have games where he just can't complete a pass. Something gets in his head. I don't know. That seems like that's probably coming here sooner than later. Detroit's playing out of its mind. They're the team that's going to win the Super Bowl. As of right now, if you ask me, I think they're the best and most complete team in the NFL. But Indy's a tough team. They got a great offensive line. Their defense is pretty tough. Their running game is good. And Anthony Richardson, we talk about it every week on this show. He just needs to work on his accuracy. Well, he did that last week. He completed over 60% of his passes, which I know I've been talking about just getting to 60%. If he can continue to do that with his running ability, with the power that he brings in the running game, with the defenses needed to stay alert, whether or not he's running the ball. If he can complete 60%, I think he completed 66% last week. Who knows if that will keep up? Detroit's defense isn't anything that special. They're good. They're probably average to a little bit above average, but they're not anything crazy good. It's their offense and their offensive line that dictates things because they have the best offensive line. And Indy has had the best or a top 5 line all year. I do believe that they have an injury now, so that's kind of went down a little bit. But the system likes Detroit minus 7.5. I think that's way too many points to be given on the road against a frisky Indy team that's still fighting for their playoff life. But that's what the system has to say. So we're going to lock it in as a system pick there. Detroit minus 7.5 at Indy. Second game here, another one I don't like, is the Carolina Panthers are hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are 11-point favorites. The system says that the Chiefs are a 6-point better team than the Carolina Panthers. They're given 11. Carolina's getting more than a touchdown and more than a touchdown and a field goal. That's a lot in the NFL. Playing on the road. After that big emotional game last week that they lost against the Bills, this is just a bad spot, if you ask me, to take the Panthers here. 11's a lot of points, and Kansas City haven't really blown teams out this season. They've just won a lot of close games. They played great football and made the plays when they need to. This could go one of two ways. If you ask me, Carolina could play really, really frisky and really trying to come out and prove something. They have nothing to lose in this game, everything to gain as far as it being on the big stage where everybody's watching because it's Kansas City. But the Chiefs also just lost a game, their first loss, which really should have been more like their third or fourth loss of the season, if you ask me. They won so many games by the skin of their teeth with just lucky bounces and whatnot. Who knows how they'll respond? Andy Reid off of a loss. I haven't checked that. I bet it's really good. Hey, we're going to take it. We're going to keep rolling with the system. It likes Carolina plus 11 at home. The next game, the Minnesota Vikings are -3 at the Chicago Bears. System says Minnesota is better than Chicago, is 10 points better than Chicago. So 3 should be an easy cover in theory. Something I've been tracking all season is the Minnesota first quarter. Minnesota is the best first quarter team in the NFL. Jim Bailey and I discussed this many times in our group chat about how Sam Darnold is excellent in scripted plays. The first quarter, Minnesota plays lights out on offense, and they have a really great defense overall. They play lights out on offense because of Darnold. When it's scripted, when he knows where he's supposed to go with the ball, when there aren't any surprises, he plays very, very good. It's when there is chaos. It's when protection breaks down or after those scripted plays. Their second quarter and the fourth quarter for the Vikings are way worse than their first and third quarters. Why? If you ask me, it's because of Sam Darnold. He's coming out of halftime after talking with the coaches and getting an idea of what's coming as far as the offensive play calls go for the second half. He plays well in the third quarter. We know in the first quarter he's got the scripted plays. The first 10, 11, 12 plays of an offense in the NFL are scripted. Those are the ones that they've worked on all week. They know what order they're doing them in or about what order they're doing them in and what plays they're calling. I'm taking Minnesota's first quarter. I'm taking Minnesota in the first quarter. I don't believe there's a line. I think it's just a money line. I pick them. If you can find that on any of the apps, just click on the game and you can scroll down and see if there is a quarter by quarter who will win by quarter. I'm taking Minnesota first quarter there. But overall, the system says that Minnesota is a good play. This will be the first time that the Vikings offensive weapons, their skill players, are all together at the same time this season. They've all been hurt. Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, their tight end. They get a tough tight end there. They're all healthy now. Now, this is an away game, and it's a division game. Those are tough games to you take the under or to take the favorite on the road, because division games, you can throw everything out the window. Division games, these teams aren't scared of the other team. These teams aren't going to be caught by surprise with anything. Lamar Jackson kills the NFC. Why does he kill the NFC? Because they don't see him. They see him once every 4 years. So when you can't prepare for a guy like that who moves the way he does, as fast as he is, it's tough to beat a guy like that. In a division game where you see these teams twice a year, sometimes 3 times if you see them in the playoffs, it's a 3-point line. Chicago losing that tough game, man. They've had some unlucky breaks. Really, this team should have 2 more wins and 2 less losses. But the system likes Minnesota. We're going to roll with them. And this one, Minnesota -3, excuse me, at Chicago. The next game, the New England Patriots are at the Miami Dolphins. New England's getting 7.5 points here. They're getting more than a touchdown. The system likes them. System says that Miami is about 4.5 points better than New England. New England playing about 500, I shouldn't say 500, right? About an average NFL team with this new rookie quarterback in there. Drake May's making some plays with his legs, and he can find some guys with his arm. Sometimes some of his throws look really, really nice. But this is in Miami. This is also a division game. I don't know how hot it is in Miami. I haven't checked the weather. That's something to monitor. And New England's not a great team, but 7.5 points, getting more than a touchdown. It's tough not to take them. The system likes it. We're going to go with it. New England plus 7.5, and they really should have covered in that game last week against the Rams, or maybe even won if they didn't have that goof up where the Rams got the ball inside the 20 to score a touchdown. That was a lot closer game than it looked. I mean, it was less than a touchdown anyway, but I feel like it was more like a 1 or 2 point game. The next game, and this is a team that I've been talking about where I wanted to take them this season, and a team that I feel like is ripe to start having some covers. The Tennessee Titans are at the Houston Texans, and Houston is an 8-point favorite. That is crazy. That's too much in this game. Another division game. Tennessee's defense, one of the best defenses in the NFL. In fact, I believe that they give up the least amount of yards in the NFL. Houston, they're all right. They're nothing special. They're maybe a little bit above average. They've had some injuries that have really hurt them this season. C.J. Stroud is not playing as well as he played last year, if you ask me. And again, the first 2 weeks of the year, I told everybody to take Tennessee against the spread. They would have covered both weeks, except for Will Levis throw pick sixes in both games. He hasn't done that lately, and he played a pretty clean game last week. If we can get a clean game out of Will Levis, I think this +8 is a slam dunk. I think this is more like a field goal game, if you ask me. But, Tennessee, it can go from a campfire to a wildfire real quick. So we're taking these teams that are underdogs, and some of them aren't very great teams. Got to be cautious. But, man, 8 points, you're getting a touchdown and a 2-point conversion for free there. That's on DraftKings is where the 8 is. There's a lot of 7.5s, but at DraftKings, it's 8. System says that Houston's only 2.5 points better on a neutral field. So you got to take the 8 points there with Tennessee. Real quick, just remember 1-800-GAMBLER is there for you. If you feel like you've got a problem, you need some information, or you need some help, please call. They will help you in any way that they can, give you the resources that you need. Okay, the next pick here. The Philadelphia Eagles are headed to the LA Rams. The Eagles are 3-point favorites, and the system likes the favorite here. It likes the Philadelphia Eagles at -3. This is a bad matchup for the Rams, if you ask me. Philly comes in with a good run game. Philly comes in with a good offensive line, and Philly comes in with a good secondary. Those are basically the weaknesses of the Rams. They've had some trouble against the run this year, and their most explosive or best players are their receivers. And, of course, they got Kyren Williams, who's pretty good. But Philly's got a pretty complete team. They've got a good defensive line as well. I think this is just going to be tough. It's going to be tough to score points for the Rams in this game, and I think Philly's going to eat the clock up. They're quiet. The best the best team in the NFL that no one's talking about are the Eagles. I don't think they could beat the Lions, but I would not be surprised to see them in the NFC Championship game. No surprise if they win that division and win a couple of home playoff games. So it would be interesting to see what happens with that team in that division. I believe that they're up on Washington by a game or two, but the Rams, kind of fool's gold right now. They're 5-5 and have won a couple close games that they probably shouldn't have. They're young. They're still kind of gaining momentum back from all those trades that they made a couple years ago when they went on that Super Bowl run. And when you do that, you mortgage your future because you went all in on 1 year and, hey, it worked out for them. So good for them on that front. But I feel like Philly is way too good here, and so does the system. System says that Philly is about between 8 and 9 points better than the Rams on a neutral field. Being in LA, there's not much of a home field advantage in LA. LA folks, people who live in LA are mostly transplants. It's not like a lot of the rest of the country where people grew up there, lived there their whole life, and were diehard Rams fans. Heck, the Rams used to play in a different city. They went from LA to St. Louis, back to LA. And I don't know. I just don't see, you're probably going to see a lot of Eagles fans at this game. If you're watching the red zone or you happen to turn it on, I like this pick. The system likes this pick. Lock it in, Philly -3. And the last of the system picks this is going to be a good one. This is going to be a fun one. The Harbaugh 2, Harbaugh 3, actually. They played in the regular season against each other with San Francisco and Baltimore, and they played in the Super Bowl against each other. And John Harbaugh won both of those matchups. We know what happened in the Super Bowl when the lights went out. Jim Harbaugh called a timeout when Colin Kaepernick was going to run into the end zone for the touchdown to take the lead late in the game. He called a timeout. Baltimore ended up winning that game, and they won a Thanksgiving game. I was at that game. I was in Baltimore for the game. I believe it was 2012. Thanksgiving in 2012 would have been 12 years ago, I believe. And I went there with some family that lived in Baltimore. I got to watch that game, talk about two good head coaches, talk about an amazing atmosphere. If you ever get a chance to go to Baltimore for an NFL game, I highly suggest it. It's a fun atmosphere. It was a Thursday night game, so they pumped up the theatrics. You could walk from the Orioles Stadium to the Ravens Stadium. They called it Ravens Mile, and they had bands playing in between. They had vendors selling merchandise and food. It was a really cool experience. It sucked that the 49ers lost, but these two coaches and these two teams are good teams. These are Super Bowl players for sure. The LA Chargers are playing like a Jim Harbaugh team. They're controlling the clock. They're running the ball. They're not turning the ball over. They're kicking field goals. Baltimore's Baltimore. Their offense is really playing good this season, but they've got vulnerabilities. Their defense has got holes in it. And I can guarantee you that Jim Harbaugh probably knows John Harbaugh better than anybody else in the world, and vice versa. So who's going to win the coaching matchup? I think Baltimore's more talented. I think Baltimore has a lot more talent on offense. On defense, I do think the Chargers are probably the better defense here. In fact, I know they are. The Chargers are the better defense. It's, can you contain Lamar Jackson? Can you contain Henry? Can you keep up with that offense? You can't kick field goals here. If you're Jim Harbaugh, you do not want to settle for field goals here. But the system thinks the Chargers are a better team, especially getting 2.5 points here. The system likes the Chargers. The one thing that the Chargers got going for them is that really good, tough offensive line. Giving Herbert some time there to make some plays, and he's been playing some really, really nice, really clean football this season, especially the last few weeks. He's hasn't thrown an interception, or maybe only thrown one interception in the last 6-7 weeks, something like that. He's playing really good. They don't have playmakers at the receiver. They have a pretty good running back, a pretty good running game. J.K. Dobbins has played well there, but they rotate in 3 different guys in their running scheme there. So I think this is going to be a fun game to watch, and I'll be rooting for Jim Harbaugh just because of that 49ers connection personally there. But a big player, a big game going into the postseason. Baltimore needs to win to stay up with Pittsburgh here. because they're still trailing Pittsburgh. Cleveland did them a favor. I'm sure they're talking about, hey, we can gain a whole game this week with the Pittsburgh loss if we can get this win. The Chargers, they're still trailing the Chiefs, and they're going to be battling for a wild card unless the Chiefs slip up here towards the end of the season. They've won close games that they probably shouldn't have. Will they lose some games that they should have? That is to be seen. But we're going to take the Chargers plus 2.5 home against the Baltimore Ravens. So that is the picks that we got for the system. Let me recap them real quick. Detroit minus 7.5, Carolina plus 11, Minnesota minus 3, the Patriots plus 7.5, Tennessee plus 8, Philly minus 3, and the Chargers plus 2.5. All right, I've been giving you guys teaser picks this season. We had another teaser pick hit last week. That was the Indianapolis Colts getting 10.5. Remember, a teaser is where you take whatever points that you're getting or points that you're giving, and you add 6 points to that. So we had the Colts at plus 10.5 because they were getting 4.5. We had the Steelers plus 9 because they were getting 6, and you have to bet them together like a parlay. And that cashed. My teaser picks this year, I believe, are probably somewhere around 7-3, 6-3, or 6-4. They got a winning record. They've done well this season. This week, I like Tennessee going from plus 8 to plus 14, and the Chargers going from plus 2.5 to plus 8.5. So the Titans are getting 2 touchdowns against the division foe with that good defense, and the Chargers are getting more than a touchdown and more than a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. I think those are good bets. That is my pick. I kind of struggled a little bit here because there's so many division games. It's really hard to take one team or the other. You could see almost anything happening with division games, but I feel like Tennessee's defense is going to keep them in this game. If Will Levis can play a clean game, and I feel like the Chargers are in a prime spot to not only cover but win the game. And when you give them 8.5 points, I think it's a good bet. So it will be interesting to see this week. The bye week, we have the Falcons, the Bills, the Bengals, the Jags, the Saints, and the Jets. So we've got 6 teams off. I believe there are no buys next week, and the following week is the last week that we'll have buys. We're heading up toward the end of the season here. We've got 7 games left in the season, counting today. So we have to make use of this time as far as we go with betting on the NFL. It's such a short window, and especially for us when we use the system, because we need 4 games with the same quarterback that started and finished the game. We need that much information just to make a bet. And sometimes when you got guys coming in and out of the lineups, it takes till halfway through the season to even get to bet on a team. So we don't get long every year to use these numbers from the system to make these bets. We've had a couple really good weeks in a row. I believe the last 3 weeks in a row we've been doing really good. That could fall off at any time. We didn't start out so great this season. I believe overall this system is 33-25 against the spread. That's still, I'll take that every day of the week. That's still plus money in the back pocket. And if you pick and choose the games that you bet on that we give here, if you pick and choose the right ones, you can be way up. So that'll do it for us here for week 12. I thank everybody for tuning in. We appreciate everybody who tunes in every week, all the messages, and everybody who enjoys the show. I really appreciate it personally, and hopefully I'll be back next week with another good record, and you guys have won some money. So for DJ Yokley and Brian Scott back at the base, I'm Gary Altizer, YSN. Thanks for tuning in, guys.